Yeah, g'day. Now, I've been meaning to do something. Well, for several years I've had these Goldfingers, computer components and ICUs, and I've done it before many years ago, where I melted them down with acids and put the gold into solution and then turned it back into gold again from computer components. Now, I don't consider it to be a viable proposition unless you could get hold of a lot of computer components for free. Then it might be viable to do, but because we're still in lockdown and I can't get out to the gold fields, I just thought maybe I'd do some of these and show you how it's done, if you haven't already seen it on many channels that do it. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is make up some solution, which is a solution of hydrochloric acid, 100 millilitres, and 50 millilitres added to that of sodium hypochlorite, or pool chlorine, bleach really, but pool chlorine in its strongest form, and that will strip the gold off these fingers and ICUs, or just the fingers if I just do those, because I might have to do it in two goes. I've only got a couple of beakers. So now, a warning on this, because when you mix these two liquids together, it's exothermal, it gets hot, and also it releases deadly chlorine gas. So you must not do this at home. Well, I'm doing it at home, but yeah, I'm not advising you to do it unless you got a PPE mask, a proper mask that'll protect you, because I tell you what, if you get this stuff in your lungs, you're as good as dead. So yeah, I just wanted to put that warning out there. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do, and it should take a day or so, I suppose, to strip these. You're supposed to stir it probably every 20 minutes for about 4 hours. And once the gold is in solution, then I'll strain it, and that solution you can then test with stannous chloride on a cloth or a tissue to see if there's gold present, but I know there will be gold present, so there's probably no need to do that. It'll just be a case of then, once it's in solution, to drop it out or precipitate it out with sodium metabisulfite, or sulfate, what do you want to call it? Sulfide, sorry. Sodium metabisulfite, or sulfide, is the chemical that'll drop it out. And hopefully there'll be a brown powder in the bottom, which will be my gold, and then I can melt that back into the solid metal form of gold. Okay, I'll give it a go and let you watch as I go along. Okay. Sorry, I meant to say 2-to-1 ratio. So if I use 100 millilitres of acid, I'll need 50 millilitres of pool chlorine. But the scale, of course, goes up. But that's it, 2-to-1 mix. Alright? Okay, got the fingers, that's all I got room for, in the acid. I'll add this slowly. A bit at a time.
Nice little bruise blind, so it's good. Hopefully get rid of the fumes. Okay, let that cook up for a while, and we'll have to stir it over the next 4 hours, about once every 20 minutes. Okay, and I like to cover that with a bucket, just like that, so it minimises the fumes, cuts down on the fumes. Okay, gas mask. Got to have the right gas mask.
Yeah, way back in the early days, that was the first thing they used to leach gold out of ore, and that was chlorine. So before they came up with such things as cyanide leaching. So yeah, it's interesting.
Right. I moved it into the sun so it would speed up the process a bit, because if it's heated it does speed up the process. Around the other side there it was in the shade. So let's give it a stir.
Right, now if you want to make stannous chloride, just for testing if there's any gold in your solution, what you do is you just put pure tin, pieces of tin, you cut it up, whatever, put it in hydrochloric acid, and then you can heat it, but yeah, if it's in the sun it'll melt that tin anyway, and once it's melted the tin away, you pour the solution off into a container, and that's stannous chloride. So what that will do is when your gold is in solution, you take an eyedropper, dip it in, put it on a tissue, and then put an eyedropper of the stannous chloride on that, and if it turns black, then you know that there's gold in the solution. So yeah, I know that there's gold in this solution, there will be. But if you were leaching ore or something like that, and you want to test to see if there's any gold in the solution, that's what you'd do. Okay? Alright, so you start to see the gold in the solution. You see the sparkling gold there? It's starting to come off the fingers. Still a lot on there though, needs stripping off. It'll be a while longer. I'll take out some of these gold fingers. Right, but most of the flakes of gold are in that solution there now. It's full of it, you can see that. Alright, so I'll strain it through a coffee filter. Strain it through this coffee filter. Which will take a while, so. Right, and I haven't done any of the CPUs yet, only the gold fingers. I think I called them ICUs earlier. ICUs. There's too much of this COVID stuff going around, eh? It's blown the mind. Yeah, CPUs. I haven't stripped any CPUs, I've still got all those left, so I only did the gold fingers. That's all I had room for. Okay. Yeah, so those fingers are pretty well stripped. Might be a few little pieces here and there, but not much. Okay, so I'm just straining that solution. Still got a bit to go. There'll be a lot of gold fingers in the bottom of that. A lot of pieces of gold. Okay, all the gold fingers are in there. Right. But they're also in solution, in that black solution as well. But they're the visible gold fingers that haven't been melted down. Okay, I'll keep going. Right, now the unmelted fingers are in there, and I've just strained all the solution into that. Normally they just melt all this down as well in solution and then drop the whole lot out, but I'm going to just dry that out, and then I'll just try and melt this thing in my crucible when it's all dry, because there's a fair bit of gold fingers in there. Okay, I'll do it that way. I think I'll try to do it that way. Yeah, so all the little fingers are in that coffee filter. I'll leave that later and try to melt all that. Leave it in the sun to dry out. These are the gold fingers. The gold fingers that are in the coffee filter. Just melting them down. Right, there she is, 0.52. Still a little bit of slag on there, but yeah, I said it was a fairly good sized bead. 0.52 of a gram, and that's out of the fingers that actually came off in the coffee filter. But I've still got all the solution yet to recover the gold from that. Okay. Yeah, well there it is, cleaned up a little bit, and I thought it was fairly big. That's nice, 0.51 of a gram, 0.51, very good. Right, so this is it there, sodium metabisulfite, which is just a wine bottle steriliser, or beer bottle steriliser you can get from any brewer's shops. That's it there. Okay, so I'm just going to put a bit in some warm water and put it in there to try and drop the solution out. Okay. Right, I put it in this jug here, and I don't know if you can see it or not. There's a line where it dropped down to about there. The brown is the gold in solution, and the top is the liquid. This all should have dropped to the bottom and turned to brown powder, and it hasn't. It hasn't done it, and I found out why. The chlorine that I was using was diluted with water and had been left in the sun, which meant it was neutralised. It wasn't good. That's the only thing I can imagine went wrong. So because this hasn't precipitated out and dropped all that brown to the bottom in a brown powder, as you can see, only dropped down about an inch, and I've added more sodium metabisulfite, so I don't want to add any more. So I'm going to just have to boil it off. Boil it all off until it drops all this down just to the brown residue, which is actually the gold. So that's a bit of a bummer. Anyway, yeah, you can definitely see that. It sort of wanted to precipitate out, but it just won't do it. So I'll boil it off and then we'll see what's left. Alright, something wrong. So anyway, instead of it dropping out the gold in the solution, it should all drop out at the bottom. So I might have to do another one just to show you what happens, but it didn't happen this time. So there's the jug I just boiled off the solution, and there's the brown stuff in there. Alright, so that's what it should look like anyway. The gold should look like that in the bottom, like a brown powder. But of course it's the right colour, but there's way too much of it, so it's got to be all the sodium metabisulfate which is in there. So I'm going to try and smelt it and see if it does turn into the gold, because that solution was loaded with gold. I'm not going to throw it away. Okay, so I'll continue on and show you the end result.